Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Astro-Inklings for April. Tam is with me this morning from the Energy Almanac. It is time for you to grab your cup of coffee or your tea. I've switched to green tea in the mornings now, or
Oh
your
boy.
water. Yes, and sit back and relax while we chat about what is happening for April. And Tam, welcome to Living Astrology this morning. And are we ready to go?
We're as ready as we'll ever be. I love this. Look at how Terry wrote my name. Capital T dot, capital A dot, capital M dot. Like that makes me so
Oh,
happy you don't even know. Thank
Tam,
you.
Tam, not to be,
It's
um,
an accident.
some somebody kept telling me, or kept calling you Tammy or something the other day, and I was like, "I don't know who you're talking about," and then it
Yeah.
hit me. They had Tammy, but you're Tam. So anyway,
My
welcome.
actual real name, so for those who are wondering, it's Tamra. Tamra. My name is Tamra or Tam.
Yeah, yep, Tamra V. I see
Yep.
that on some of your, social media or your things
Yeah.
that you write.
Yeah.
So here we are. I can't believe we're gonna be talking about April. It seems like I don't know. Yesterday was just the New Year's Day, right? On the calendar, New Year's.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right.
And here we are, almost to the point, at least in this month for March, where Neptune moves into Aries, which is a huge thing. I mean, this is a
Huge.
once in a lifetime event. It
Mhm.
is it's not only just, new for us in this life, but it hasn't happened for 165 years that Neptune has
Remarkable.
actually moved into the sign of Aries. So the last time was during the Civil War or as the Civil War broke out. So
Mm.
if you put that in the context with how far we've come in those
You mean the
165
Revolutionary
years.
War, 165? No, you're right. It is the Civil War. Yeah.
Civil War, yeah. The
Yep.
Revolutionary War was when just after Pluto moved into Aquarius,
Pluto. That's
or
right. Pluto.
just
I got
before,
it.
yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
but both, big things to do with changes and how, we sometimes have these evolutionary leaps that occur. And Neptune is one of those outer planets that brings us into a new age, if you will, even though technically speaking, it's not like the age of Aquarius. It's just new energy that becomes available on the planet, and Aries being the first sign of the zodiac,
Right.
it is all things fresh and new, and the possibilities being pretty much endless.
Right.
And yet, there's a very martial feeling to the energy in Aries. Martial be related to the Mars planet that's the ruler of Aries, the sign, and that is bold and courageous energy. It acts first and thinks later. So,
Reactionary rather than responsive. Yeah.
yes, indeed. So, we have the highs and the lows of this whole, Neptune moving in here, but I think, in a very poetic way, we have the mists of Neptune that are kind of tempering the fires of Mars, or of Aries. So, I think even though it's very powerful and, booming kind of energy, at least initially, it softens over the course of time, as Neptune works his magic, his brand of magic on
Well,
the sign of the new beginnings.
it's kind of like putting on your jeans when they're a little snug at first and it's uncomfortable and you have to find your way into them, and then things
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah, yeah.
comfortable and more comfortable. The longer we wear it, the more comfortable we get inside of it. I particularly, and I encourage everybody to do this, is like make notes about what's going on over these next few months as Neptune finds its way into Aries. Like, what are you noticing? And
Yeah.
I know that you have said in the past, Janet, that with the Civil War and when Neptune moved into Aries, it happened relative, like something pretty significant could happen when it turns on Sunday, right? So next week, all eyes open, right? Our eyes will be on
Yeah,
this.
yeah, literally. It's every time Neptune changes signs, the outer planets, they tend to when they change signs, they tend to create waves, right? Like waves of energy that create sometimes chaos. and often it is striking in terms of how it shows up. Um, but it doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that every time it changes that we are going to be in that kind of territory because we're also evolving consciously.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. Like if the Civil War was here, we're up here at some level. We've made it through another spring, so to speak. So yeah, I agree with that.
yeah.
I don't expect anything
Yeah,
horrific
I
by any
I don't
means.
I don't expect anything horrific. I do expect that we're gonna probably see a lot more conflict,
Hmm.
um, and things like activism and demonstrations
Yeah,
and, fighting against. This is the funny thing about Aries, right? If and people in general, like, if we could find something to fight for, it would be so much better than if we were finding ourselves, as we usually do, fighting against
yeah,
something. So maybe a part of the evolution will be about how we look forward instead of how we are fighting either against the forward movement of time or against something that, we don't want to have changed. So it'll be interesting to see, right? I don't expect a civil war either. I would say we've been in one, right? In
oh,
this
for
country, at
heaven's
least.
sakes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, it may not be with, guns and shooting each other and things like that, but definitely a battle of ideologies. And
Yes.
I am working on a piece right now that will likely be a course about the Jupiter move out of Gemini and the subsequent movement of Uranus into Gemini, because I think that really is where the ideological wars are.
Mm,
Wars, I wish there was a better word, battles maybe.
mhm.
So, they're all going within lockstep here, which makes this even more amped up. But
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be uh, as bad as, say, a civil war or a revolutionary war
I don't know.
kind of thing. Yeah.
We're better
But
than
I meant,
that. Let's all remember that we're better than that.
yeah. And, here's the thing about the move of Neptune into Aries. And I think he's there already anyway. He's already at this gate 25 in our human design. And I know some of you listening aren't as familiar with human design, say, as I am, or even, Tam in some respects. But there are 64 gates in a human design, and the gates represent energies that are tied to astrological signs. And Neptune will be in the gate 25 as he moves into Aries, which is a gate called Spirit. And that gate is all about unconditional love. So isn't it
Mm,
interesting, right, that in the Civil War, the same gate would have been being impacted, but we didn't know anything about human design then. But now we
right.
do. And now
Yeah,
we can say, quite eloquently that there's something better about humans than what we were aware of at that time, right? This
yeah.
idea of spirit or embodying the divine or the divine spark, however you want, to word that, but also the fact that this is a time where if we bring empathy and compassion and generosity and tolerance and acceptance and all the yummy Neptune energies to the forefront with that Aries energy, we can all really, we're still going to have conflict and we're still going to disagree and all of that, but we can do it in a way that's more responsible.
Right. Beautifully
Yeah.
said.
That's
Absolutely.
our high side. Our high side. So, as we launch into April, we move in with that energy of Neptune in Aries. And literally, we have almost like the first 3 days of the month to sit with that before we before we get into the first day that has a lot going on. Do you agree? Is there anything else that you saw in the first 3 days?
No, no, I agree. I said to you before we started, like it starts off quietly. So let's get
Indeed.
into the month.
It starts off quietly, but does it really because of those Neptune changes,
Yeah,
right?
no,
March is kind of
actually,
like
no.
the wild of March comes into the tamer energy of April, but is it really tamer? I guess we'll see as time goes on. But the
Right.
first big day of the month is April 4th. That's the first Friday. The moon will be in Cancer that day. So we already are cued in that it might be more emotional, that we all might
Feeling.
be more sensitive. Yeah.
Yep.
And the I don't know, the aspects this day feel really interesting to me because Saturn and Mars and Uranus are all kind of in cahoots that day, where we have this idea of Saturn, who is still in Pisces, but in a
Mhm.
sextile to Mars, who is at in wait, Saturn and Mars are sextiling Uranus. Excuse me, back up. And so there's this
Mhm.
unexpectedness to the day, like
Right.
what might happen. It's exciting, but it's also daunting. Remember, Saturn is duty and responsibility and borders and boundaries and all of those
Lessons,
things that
yeah,
lessons.
yeah.
Yeah. So it could be an interesting day in terms of what are the lessons that we're learning. Um, so Saturn in Pisces is offering us spiritual boundaries or spiritual structure, like
Spiritual
intuition.
structure, I like to think of it like that, yeah.
Yes. The forming of the foundation of our lives being inspirited.
Mm,
That's one way to look at it. And Mars in Cancer moves from the heart. So the
mhm.
action here with Mars is very much about protection. It is emotionally driven energy, sometimes volatile in terms of the sensitivity that it brings to the surface. And with the moon in Cancer, then we know that at some point during that day or the next, or yeah, the next, we're going to have moon conjunct Saturn or moon conjunct Mars in the sign of Cancer.
It's gonna be
And you
like, have your tissues close by is how I feel about that day. That's honestly highly, highly emotional. I know Cancer is the one sign that gets me every month. Like clockwork, I'll
it
go, "Oh,
does me too.
yeah,"
It
I
does
get
me
so
too.
weepy, and with Mars there and the moon there and, the news that comes with Uranus, and of course, this is in the si in, Taurus,
Taurus.
so we're looking at self-worth issues maybe, or maybe being triggered by self-worth issues, or maybe it's the economy, maybe there's financial news. Hey, expect something surprising, and maybe it makes you cry with joy, and maybe it doesn't.
I like that. I like crying with joy.
I cry with
But
joy,
this
but I'd
yeah,
prefer that.
but this will be a day, to make intentional changes, right? To be very intentional in what you're doing, especially if it's related to home or health or habits, and that's because there's that Cancer, protection kind of energy. Maybe start a project that blends soul with strategy, right?
Mm,
Spirit with your work, and then trust both your instincts and your long-term vision, right? The actual sense of vision and seeing what is coming for the future. Saturn rules time.
mhm,
In Roman mythology, he was Chronos
right.
rather than Saturn, which was the timekeeper. So I don't know. There's a if we had to choose a theme for this day, the 4th of April, I would say it's a day that where aligned action builds lasting change for us. Um,
Mm.
and takes us into the future in a more healthy way. So it's a great way to start the month of April after Neptune's move into Aries on March 30th. You know what? I forgot too. I could be sharing the calendar.
Oh,
Um,
good idea.
and let me share my screen here. And let's see, was it a window? No, it was an entire screen. No, it was a tab. Oh my goodness. Okay, hold on. I'm going to have to do it this way and then go to share it. It's so tricky sometimes to share your screen if it's not a window. There we go. All right, here's April.
There we
And you might notice the calendar
Yay.
shape as it's the one from the Energy Almanac. And I tried to upload this for all of you this morning, but unfortunately, my website was not behaving. So I will try to get this up later when we're done and get it out to everybody. But the calendar here shows you, what is the major aspects for the day. So here on the 4th, we had Saturn and Mars in a sextile to Uranus, and Mars also then in a trine with Saturn, although we didn't speak it that way. You saw the energetic connection between those planets. And the next day we go to is the 6th of April. And that is, should I share the human design weeks in between?
Oh, of
What do you
course.
all right, let's do that first because on the
Yes.
5th, the Human Design Week changes. And for those of you who are new and don't know what human design is, the human design weeks are a little shorter than the 7-day week that we have on the calendar. Typically, they're 5, maybe 6 days. So the energy is shifting through the zodiac faster than we think of in terms of the calendar. And on the week of April 5th through the 9th, we have the sun in gate 51. Now, this is a tricky gate in human design because it's called the gate of initiation. But in the old human design or the traditional human design, it was called the gate of shock because the
Mm,
gate 51 is tricky, right? This is where things happen in our lives that are designed to wake us up. It's like you've fallen asleep and somebody comes along and shakes you awake, right? And at first you're kind of startled or you're, scared, and then you realize, "Oh, it's my alarm," or, "Oh, I need to get up." And that's what this gate is about, but it's an awakening to move you towards spirit because it's moving to the gate 25 where Neptune is sitting. So it'll be an interesting week for awakening through shock or through unexpectedness. And the shock doesn't have to be a bad thing either. It could be like, hey, you won the lottery, right?
tears of joy again. Tears of joy again.
Yes, exactly. And that same week, the Earth will be at the gate 57. And the 57 sits on the spleen center, which is the center for intuition, time, health, wellness, and survival. Or, as I like to say, thriving, right? It's a much better word than just plain survival. And it is a gate that causes the 57, where the Earth is sitting, causes us to ground into our intuition. And that's the thing to remember, that even in the midst of a shock or something that was unexpected, follow your gut instinct, follow your intuition, and you will be in the right place, right time, right people, right opportunity. And then that same week comes a very interesting financial a gate in human design where the planet Jupiter, who represents expansion and growth, he's moving into the gate 45, which is on the throat center and is a gate we call distribution. It's about how money, resources get distributed. And it is a gate that is often very generous. So I think of it as good economic news, perhaps, or a week where, you might get some good news in the form of a paycheck or a tax credit or something, right? So be watchful for that.
I have a question, Janet.
Yeah.
Are you talking of, can you give me the dates of that again? I'm just trying to
Yeah.
tie it all together to
A-
the,
yeah. April 5th through the 9th.
it is 5 through 9. Okay, that's what I wrote. I
Yeah.
thought I got it wrong. Thank you.
No, you're perfect. 5 through 9. So the lesson for the week, and in human design, this is what I always look for, is the lesson, and then what's the shadow expression, and that's what I write about in the Energy Almanac, is the week's gift and expression of fear or shadow. And the lesson will be about embracing disruption as a catalyst for growth, right? Whatever it is, if some curveball comes in, take it in as a catalyst for something better, something new, something that moves you forward. In the shadow expression, this is where we ourselves are creating chaos, where we're attention seeking or where we're afraid of being unsettled. That, how when change happens, how we fear that change because it unsettles us. And the gift here will be the courage to leap into the unknown. Um, Inspiring others through your boldness and through your own breakthroughs and sharing them with others.
That
So it's a
feels
big
very
week.
Aries.
It does feel very Aries, right? These are Aries energies. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because it has a mirror image in the year between, I think it's about October 11th through the 14th, where the sun is at the 57 and the earth is at the 51. They reverse their order. But that same week, we're all dealing with fear energies anyway. And so we are now, but with the earth. But the earth is a grounding function, right? So we're having to be grounded in releasing fear, right? We have to keep our feet on the ground in order to move forward fearlessly.
Mm.
So it's just an interesting week to have thrown in here in April uh, with the weight of the other transits that have been happening and the ones that are yet to happen.
I actually
So,
think that that whole thing that you just said, all of it, all those
uh-huh.
dates sounds so like interesting in what they might offer us. I'm kind of interested in this.
It's exciting. It really is, but, sometimes those shocks are things that people find out they have cancer, right? And yet, in the grand scheme of things, that ends up changing their lives in some way.
Right. Right.
So it's all about whatever it is that wakes you up, but you change in response to that. And typically we make changes for the better, right? Or we make some kind of change that supports that new reality. Now, it's not always those kinds of diagnoses, but that's one thing that tends to shake people up, right? So let's go to April 6th.
April 6th. Oh, yes, this trine.
Yes, tell me about that. What do you think? Venus retrograde, trine Mars.
Which is also in Cancer. And I don't know, this one's going to be you. That I love the idea of Sun and Jupiter trine. That's some amazing energy, big Jupiter and I don't know, like
Yeah,
you're gonna have to go there. Like I really have to sit and write it out, and I didn't this time. So go ahead, tell us about
yeah,
it.
I think this is kind of a high vibe day,
High
right?
vibe.
This
There we go.
high vibe because the sun is in Aries and it's in a sextile to Jupiter and Gemini. So we have air and fire. They love each other, right? Air, what does air do to fire? It fans the flames, right? And Venus retrograde in Pisces is in a trine to Mars in Cancer. So we have water to water. So we
Yeah.
have flow. So we have a high vibe flow, is how I look at it. It's kind of a
Hmm.
soul nourishing kind of day, right? Where maybe bright ideas turn into, long term plans. We are boosted with our confidence and maybe clarity about something, what we need to do next or who we want to be with, and sense of purpose. And it's kind of playful and curious energy, right? Gemini and loves to play, and Aries is a youth, right? It's the youthful play energy, and it's
So
great for putting ourselves out there.
I am picking up what you're putting down, and then when you tie it into what just happened Friday and with the gates in human design, I feel like we're going into a really nice piece of time right there, potentially. I mean, whatever news happens, the fourth, maybe trickling into the fifth, and now we have Sunday to sort of bring it all together. Like, what's the best of this? Like, what's right about this that I don't know? I actually
Yeah.
really like this.
Yeah, it's a really positive energy as long as you don't go into fear if something changes dramatically in your life, right? Don't go there. And at the same time, Venus is still retrograde in Pisces.
Yeah.
So, and it's reaching out to Mars in Cancer in a positive flow. There's that. And it's emotional kind of energy again, right? We have an emotional flow. And the way that it's like emotional sweetness that kind of has this reflective twist, right? The emotions are feeling good and sweet and positive, but then there's this sort of reflective inner you that is maybe yearning for something from the past or yearning for the old days or an old flame, something like that. So it's I don't want to call it bittersweet because that makes it sound like it doesn't feel good. It's really just kind of sweetness, with that reflective energy that's also a part of it. Maybe it's a day that you reconnect with someone from your past. Maybe it's a day that you go back to a creative project. And you and I have both had this experience already this month, dusting off something old
Yeah.
that an idea that wasn't fully formed at a time that now is coming to light. So the energy of the sixth is kind of expressive and introspective.
Mm,
How's that for both, right? We're breathing in and breathing out. It's bold and tender. And
mm.
it's also a great day to say yes to opportunities that feel exciting
Right.
and feel aligned.
Whenever the
Ref
Sun and Jupiter are playing like that, I think watch for
Yeah,
opportunities. That's what I always think. I love that it
yeah,
falls on a Sunday too. Like, what a great day to be
yeah.
home, really, like, be with this energy.
Yes, exactly right. And it's, a theme maybe of when heart and purpose align and
Mm,
how magic can flow from that.
mhm.
So, it to me, it that is a very good day, and for some people, those things that might happen in terms of the greater energy of the week with change or shock on the horizon,
Mhm.
it might lead to something so spectacular, right? It's all going to be in your perception. What do
Yeah.
you perceive about this? All right. Anything else about that?
No, I didn't have
Okay.
that one on mine, so that's great.
Oh, cool. So let's go to Monday because, Mondays aren't difficult enough. On that particular Monday, Venus conjunct Saturn,
Mhm.
Mercury turns direct.
Right. Yes.
And Jupiter makes a move into the gate 45, which I think I already spoke to somewhat, but it is a day definitely for us to be watchful
Yes.
about things that are going on in terms of our money, our
Mhm.
flow. Mercury turning direct is yay, but anytime a planet switches or stations direct from retrograde or stations retrograde from direct, either way, it's wonky
Yep.
and unexpected things can happen. So watch out, back up your computers or make sure your messages are checked double and twice and triple times and that you aren't inadvertently saying or doing things that, hurt people's feelings, what have you. Um, and then Venus conjunct Saturn. That's a little heavier energy, although not terrible.
Right.
Um, but here's what I really think about this day. I I think given Sunday and its positive spin and positive vibe, that Monday comes along and maybe helps us to let go of outdated beliefs that we have, right?
Oh.
Especially around love or money or things that we use to hold us back from being in relationships or
Mhm.
having a good money flow and maybe following a creative spark perhaps that is coming up. I don't know, I just feel like there's some reflection energy that day that actually leads us into the 8th when Venus is in a sextile to Uranus.
Yep.
So I kind of think we have to take the 2 days, the 3 days, the 6th, the
Yep.
7th, and 8th
Yep.
kind of together as a whole because it seems like one day sets the tone and you make a choice as to how you're going to respond or react to something. And then the next day lets us think about it, let it sink in. And then the next one actually is the day we choose. What do we do?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's eh, I didn't see all this when I first pulled, like, I had notes too, but I didn't see how they're all lining up to support each other so in such an interesting way.
Yeah.
The Venus sextile Uranus, I mean, Uranus in Taurus, Venus in Pisces, Venus in money, Uranus in the sign of money and values. I mean, so maybe some more information coming in that can make us think or dream differently, maybe even have a uh more expansive, hopeful dream for
y-
ourselves and who we are and how we show
Yes.
up. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Healing even, right? Healing comes
Yeah,
through new
sure.
eyes and open hearts. That's kind of how I
Yes.
I set the theme for that, uh,
Yep.
for Tuesday, as all of the other stuff is, happened on Sunday and on Monday. On Tuesday, then the healing sets in, and it could be healing all the way through. But I feel like, these 3 days are kind of linked in terms of how that energy plays out. So
Yeah.
as far as I am concerned, those are gonna be great days to if you're not typically a journaler, these are the days to journal for
It
sure,
is.
um,
Yeah.
because somehow putting the things together, like all the pieces together,
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta jot them all down so that you have them, to see the insight, to get the breakthrough moment, actually. And it is kind of a day where, new eyes, open heart, right? That goes along, I think, with the whole need that we have with Aries right now. The new eyes, seeing things with a new vision and with an open heart, right? Being inspirited. Yeah.
Absolutely. I actually thought on the 8th, April 8th, like that could be potentially a very emotional day. The whole, Venus and love and Pisces being, compassion and love. It could be
Yeah.
interesting.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
empathetic. Um, yeah, there's a lot of Piscean energy available with Mercury retrograde there, Venus retrograde there. Except, Mercury will have turned direct by the 8th, but it's still energy in Pisces that we're being asked to be more, I don't know, tender, loving,
Yeah.
unconditionally loving, empathetic, compassionate, generous of heart. So all of that's, packed in there as well. And right? It's all there. You can see right here on the calendar how the month kind of rolls through.
Mhm.
So then we come to the next Human Design Week on the 10th of April through the 15th, so 5 days. And this is the best week, I think, of the year because it starts with celebration, right? The sun will be in the gate 42, which is called celebration, and the earth is in the gate 32, which is the gate called endurance. And there's a theme about completing cycles with joy, right? It's not
Ooh.
about, greeting it with angst or anxiety. It's about creating this joy. And the lesson of the week will be about letting go with grace, right? Just letting go and honoring what has come full scale, what has come into fruition. In the shadow expression, we'll be hanging on too tightly, right? We want it to stay the same and we can't let go, right? We're holding, we're dug in. It's a fear of an ending, it's stagnation, and that would be the shadow of the week. But in its highest, we're embracing closure. We're embracing joyful release, letting
Mhm.
go of all the things, trusting in life's rhythms, right? Trusting that
Mhm.
everything is working as it is meant to work. And then taking with the earth in the gate of endurance, it's preservation and it's long-term growth. We're here for the long haul, right? We're not going to just give up and run away now because things are changing. That doesn't do us any good. So the lesson is to trust what is sustaining us right now versus what must evolve. So to keep going, what must we let go of? And the fear in that gate is so tender because it's one that strikes a chord with everybody, and it's the fear of failure. That we're
Mm.
gonna that we're gonna cling to the outdated things, feelings, beliefs, or projects, or ways of being because we're afraid if we change, it's going to fail. And then what? Who am I
Mm.
then? And so we resist change in the shadow of that particular week. But in the gift or the mastery energy, it's intuitive timing. We're in the right place at the right time. We're making steady progress toward a goal, and we have the wisdom to know what to carry forward and what's worth just leaving alone. So to me, it's a dance between completion and continuity,
Mm.
and we have both with us at that point. So um, it's a week to honor life's rhythms and cycles, right? We're going into Easter, the Easter celebrations and holidays at this point, in April anyway.
Right.
So we're celebrating, right? Sometimes you have to clear out the trash in order to have a new beginning, right? So,
Totally.
yeah. So that's the Human Design Week. From the 10th through the 15th. And I apologize, I did not put these on the calendar here because as you can see, the calendar's so full already. So maybe I'll go back and I'll put that in for everybody. So when the calendar is downloadable, you'll know you'll know that information. All right, let's talk about the 12th, a
Yeah.
long-awaited day if ever there was one.
Yeah. Venus direct. Yahoo.
Yeah, Venus
Right.
direct and the full Libran moon
And
or
the
the full
full
Libra,
Libra moon.
which is always a beautiful moon. Uh,
Mm.
bringing some balance and some harmony. But
Right.
let's talk about Venus direct first.
Okay.
And then we'll look at the moon because the moon is kind of complex. There's a lot of things going on within that full moon
Yeah.
that day.
Sure. Yep.
So if we look at Venus direct, when Venus is in retrograde, we are reevaluating our values, our money,
Mhm.
our relationships, our
Mhm.
relationship to love, our relationship to abundance, that type of thing. And sometimes those things turn backwards, right? Venus in that way has us moving inward to rediscover our beliefs or our values, our self-worth and our confidence and all these kinds of things, right? Because that's what she rules. But she also rules beauty and harmony and so forth. So, sometime during these last several weeks while Venus has been in retrograde, all of you might have been at some point reevaluating things in your life. What do you value? What is your value? Where's your self-worth and where are you worthy or not
Mm.
worthy, right? And confidence and all of these types of things. So now she's finished that inward journey as of the 12th and she begins to move forward again And that brings maybe some ahas about, the things that you were holding on to that weren't true about yourself. Things in your relationships may have changed. Um, it's kind of a day for us to celebrate the fact that we're moving forward with that. It's a turning point, I think. Anytime those planets start to change direction, it's a turning point, and a turning point in money and self-worth and what have you. So what you've been reflecting on in your heart is now beginning to move forward, and maybe with more compassion and clarity than you had, 8 weeks ago when she changed to retrograde. Does that all make
Absolutely.
sense?
Sounds great. Sounds yummy. And
Mm.
then it goes right hand in hand with this Libra full moon, which is loaded.
Yes, it's a loaded full moon, and mostly because the sun is conjunct Eris. And I'm going to pull the chart out and see if I can.
Oh, so my chart doesn't show Eris, and I'm not super familiar with Eris. I see
Um,
Chiron though.
yeah, so if you look at my screen here, you
Oh
can see right there,
my.
that's where the sun is. So it's not the moon that's conjunct to these things. The moon is on the other side in yellow there in the sign of Libra. But a full moon is always the opposition of the sun and the moon. And that sun is holding quite a bit of energy there in Aries, right? Especially because it is in a very tight conjunction to both Chiron and Eris.
Mhm.
And, we can break this down somewhat because the invitation here from the full moon is to rebalance your life, right?
Right.
Such a Libran theme is about
Absolutely.
balancing and bringing harmony, especially if there's tension between your inner truth and your relationship with the outer world, because Libra wants peace. It is a sign of peace, of diplomacy, of tact, and
Absolutely.
balancing that harmony. And Aries, on the other side, wants authenticity,
Mhm.
and with the energy of Chiron and Eris on either side of the sun, old wounds can be triggered,
Mm,
bringing being brought up for release.
yeah.
And hidden anger could rise to the surface, not to
Mm,
create chaos, but again, to set something radically honest free, right?
right.
To come to the truth. And in the background, Saturn and Uranus are sextile to one another,
Mhm.
and they're kind of offering some stability and flexibility during the full moon.
I like that word
Um,
flexibility when as it relates to Uranus, right?
yeah, and if you think about it, they kind of build a bridge between because they're on either side, right, of
Yeah,
the sun. So
right.
there's this kind of bridge between this trio of planets that suggests lasting healing comes from really working through your issues while staying grounded and
Yeah,
recognizing that you would be much better when you come to peace, that things would be better when they come into balance.
yeah.
So the full moon always is a great time for release anyway, right? Releasing old wounds or self-doubt,
Yep.
especially related to relationships, as
Oh,
Libra is a
right.
relationship sign.
That sounds good. And isn't that interesting with Venus, who was just retrograde and kind of had an open invitation to revisiting old relationships, right? And now we have this moon. It's like, okay, now let it go.
Yeah.
Now,
It
now it's time to
doesn't
release.
it it kind of feels like the exclamation point
Yeah,
at the end
it
of a long
does. Right,
transit or the
right.
closing of one chapter, opening up to the other. Um, it is maybe recommitment to relationships that matter, that
Mhm.
honor your truth. Maybe a new chapter in love or work, even your creative work, especially Libra is a sign of creativity. Speaking truthfully, even if your voice shakes.
Nice, nice.
um, so it's honest hearts, right? Honest truth that sets love free, and being truthful with yourself and others is possibly the work of the full moon following the Venus direct. So sounds good to me.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Then we come to another human design week, the 16th through the 21st. And this is another combination that I actually think a lot of in terms of how it sets us up for success as the year goes on, because the sun will be in the gate 3, which is on the sacral center, and which is the center of love, or excuse me, work and service and doing and being. and it's called the gate of innovation. So the
Oh.
gate 3 is where a lot of new ideas percolate through.
Mm.
And this gate is so interesting in human design because it's not change for the sake of change, but it's change like the person who would have the gate 3 defined is a change agent. So they bring change to the party every time they attend. And that's just their nature. But they're also a little ahead of their time.
Mm.
So the gate 3 sometimes is allowing us to see into the future and what's possible, but yet the template isn't quite built yet to support that future. So it's
Mm.
exciting because we can see what might be creative and innovative and support us in the future, but we still have the time, the test of time to get to it. So
Mm.
it can be frustrating sometimes because we can see so well what would be, but we don't know how to get there yet, right? Or we don't have the right tools to get there yet. And so the earth is grounding us, and she's in the gate 50, the 50 gate, which is on the spleen center, another gate that can take us into fear. But the fear here, or the gate itself, is called nurturing. It's about
Ah.
nurturing the in the wider sense, right? It does include self-nurturing, but this is very feminine energy in the human design, and this is the feminine role as it relates to human design is about teaching the values of the tribe. It's about making sure that everybody in the tribe is clothed, fed, nurtured, has an education. It is a teaching gate, right? It's about teaching the values of the tribe so that the
Mm.
tribe survives, right?
Oh, interesting.
And in its shadow energy, this gate 50 is about over mothering or smother mothering, right? Or, um, being afraid that your tribe, your children will fail. And so you do more every day to try to keep them all under control. So we have an interesting pair of gates for this week. The lesson here may be about trusting the creative process in terms of the three, even when it feels messy or it feels unclear or it feels chaotic. And then with the nurturing, responsible nurturing, right?
Mm.
Because the idea, you're a mother, I'm a mother, our idea, there's lots of mothers and fathers out there, is to raise your child to become a responsible, accountable adult, right?
Right.
That's our jobs to make sure that they are fed and clothed and housed and have everything they need to become a successful, well-adjusted grown up. That's our job. But when we do it in a smothering way, then we start to lose our own self, our own wellness, because
Yeah.
now we're digging into nurturing others, but losing the nurturing for ourselves. So it's maybe a place where we might feel guilt, or where we're over responsible, or where we fear others, or we fear letting others down,
Mm.
and to such an extent that we, try to hold on and control. So, this is about being more grounded in your experience of caring for others and caring for yourself. Wise caregiving, let's call it that, right?
Ooh. Yeah.
And whether that is of a person or an idea, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter. That's that energy that week. So, all right, that takes us into April 16th and 17th, which I joined together because it was almost like one happens and then the other happens. It might be split over 2 days just because of the time zone you're in, but they're
Mm.
really happening kind of together. And that is Mercury entering Aries after his retrograde in the sign weeks ago, and Mercury then conjunct Neptune newly in Aries. So it's
Bef-
like what did I call it, like a kiss or a handshake as they pass one another, right? Mercury
Before,
depositing information.
before we go there, the retro shade period ends when approximately the 12th or 13th.
The retro shade of
Mercury.
Mercury
Yeah.
will be approximately 3 weeks from the day he went direct, so we'll say probably 22nd to 26th of April, because he went
Really through
direct.
April. We might as well say through April. Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and retrograde, for those of you who are new to this, means that even though Mercury has gone direct, he's going back over territory he's already been in. So it still triggers the shadows sometimes of what the retrograde brought up, or completes the circuit with whatever it was that you were working through during the retrograde.
And
Uh,
can feel really clunky.
it
The
can.
energy can be really, really clunky. For me, sometimes almost as bad as the retrograde itself. So just I wanted to make sure that we brought that up for those who are sort of new to
Yeah,
retrogrades.
and Venus will have a time like that as well after her
Yeah.
retrograde. Hers will be like 4 weeks long before she gets to the space because she went further into Pisces and she is not moving as fast as Mercury does
Okay.
just
Yep.
because of where she is. Okay, so what about Mercury entering Aries?
Ooh, I feel like a busy, busy mind, forthcoming fast thoughts, bold communication. That's what I see as like highlights of that.
Yeah, it's interesting because he joins up with Neptune almost right away, right? They
Right
just
away,
they
bang,
fall
like
into one another. And I think this is a spark of visionary thinking that comes to everybody
fingers
and
crossed.
intuitive insight, right? That aha moment, that
Yeah.
spark. Maybe spiritual fire, right?
Mhm.
Like
Spiritual fi oh, Neptune, yeah, spiritual fire, yeah, I like that.
But with a need to stay grounded and
Yeah,
and seek clarity. Again, right, that could be very much prompting us to take action that isn't yet grounded in any kind of reality. Remember, Neptune is the land of the unreal, and Mercury being very excited to be released from retrograde might be a little overzealous in that visionary thinking.
yeah,
Visionary thinking doesn't lead to action yet, perhaps, but
right.
maybe leads to the strategy that then leads to the steps that lead to the process of taking action. So it's catalytic. Let's call it that because it can be the spark again that really sets things in motion.
Mhm.
But it still has that little dreamy quality because Neptune is still Neptune. Even though
I
he's
was
in Aries, he's still Neptune.
right, and I could definitely see, new ideas dropping in that day for sure, and maybe an idea drops in for you to analyze it really well, um,
Right.
you know?
Um, Maybe it's a flash of insight.
Right,
And
a
you know
flash,
how flashes are, right? They come on and you're like, whoa, that's awesome. But the directions didn't drop in,
yeah,
right? So you
yeah,
have to wait
wait,
a little bit.
yeah,
Things might be a little fuzzy for a few weeks yet, until Mercury gets past his point where he turned retrograde. And be mindful of, you know, being overly idealistic,
mm,
being, jumping in too fast. There's a lot of energy in Aries that is going to be here for a while with Neptune in Aries and then Saturn next month moving into Aries. Next month meaning May, not April. And this is an energy of just do it, right? Go for it, do it,
yeah,
jump, leap. And sometimes that works, but most times it doesn't, right?
yeah,
Most times we have to think it through and visualize or strategize. And hopefully, Mercury sparking the visionary thinking part of things will also spur you to look at, well, what's it going to take for me to do this or to be this? And you'll slow things down a bit. So, yet there's this mystic messenger piece in Neptune and Aries, and
right.
Mercury delivering that message, perhaps. So, it could be very interesting, I think, for those 2 days, the 16th and the 17th. And then a long awaited change, right? For those of you who have had Mars in Cancer in a hot place in your chart for the last, I don't know, well, since what was it, January, but also then before August until November, I think it was, we had him in the sign of Cancer, and he will move out of that and into Leo on the 18th. And
Mhm,
that long stay in Cancer, has been I on one hand has been kind of beautiful in the reflection mode and in our ability to be emotional and sensitive, and yet there's that steamy frustration that comes up because it's like you can't quite get the engine running in the direction that you want to. and that finally frees up when he moves into Leo. What do you think about that?
Oh, I'm excited for Mars and Leo for the more energy behind creativity or creative expression. I'm looking for I'm looking for more singing, more dancing, more art making. In my house, anyway, that's what will happen, and really just the expression and that boldness. It also could be kind of annoying, right? Because
Yep. Yep.
it's a lot of energy, and if you have Leo friends, I mean, not all of them, some of them are just very, very expressive, and you're like, "Oh, tone it down." But
Ah, there is that. And, this will be a shift from feeling our way forward to actually owning
exactly.
our path and with more fire and with more flair. So
Yeah.
it could be,
Flair.
a lot of drama,
Yeah.
flair,
Yeah.
drama.
Yeah, that's the hard
Y-
part. That's the hard part right there. The flair
yeah,
and the drama that comes with Leo is
yeah.
the hardest part. But I'm still excited about it. I think it'll be a nice change. I found the Mars in Cancer rather dampening. So
Dampening, such a great word there, Tam.
yeah,
Great word, because that's exactly your spirit's dampened a little bit. Your steps forward are dampened. Interesting, that a lot of rain happened around during Mars and Cancer.
yeah,
So now it'll turn to fire energy. This is passionate action, by the way, don't
passionate
you think?
action. Yeah,
Yeah, because Leo really is the heart, goes to
yeah, yeah,
the heart of who you are and your self-expression and what you wanna take forward or put lead with. So it says, "Be seen, be brave, be bold,"
yeah.
kind of like all of the Aries energy
That's
says
what I was
that
gonna
kind of
say. Yeah,
fire and
absolutely.
fire, right?
Yeah,
So it's a time that we'll start to take bold action again.
yeah.
It is stepping into leadership in Leo. It's the leader energy or claiming the spotlight in some way, especially if you've been hiding. It might reignite a creative passion or goal that you had that you were working on that sort of fizzled when Mars was retrograde or when Mars was in Cancer. So the idea is to let joy and playfulness kind of fuel your momentum. If it feels good, then you're doing it right. Lead with your heart, move with courage, and just let yourself be seen and heard and valued and recognized, right?
Mm.
Good. It's good, good. And he'll be in Leo for a few weeks. So it's not like just one day or two. He'll give us some time to grow into this exciting day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the very next day, the 19th, the sun moves into Taurus.
Yeah.
And that is the day that, of course, the energy of our egos, of our confidence, and of who we are and what we do steps into a new sign.
Mm.
And Taurus kind of slows the pace. I think
Yeah.
that will be a little bit of a break to the gas pedal that's like full blown at that point in time.
Yep. We could probably all use a break by then.
Yeah, Taurus breaks us into our simplicity, takes
Yeah.
us into our steady, eddy, grounded selves.
Ground.
And after all that bold initiating energy of Aries,
We'll be ready.
we'll be ready. It brings us back to the body, right? It
Yeah.
brings us back to the earth and to do what then truly sustains us. We're going through a time of shedding and letting
Mhm.
go, and then a time of reorientation.
Yeah.
And then Taurus energy allows us to really see what it is that we want to do and who we want to be and what will be sustaining. And then we can put roots down,
Yeah.
right? We
Love
root,
it.
yeah, into our value, into our worth. This is a sign ruled by Venus.
Mhm.
So we have values and self-worth and we have relationships and, beauty and harmonizing and things like that as a part of the Taurus experience. It's also very sensual energy.
Highly
It
sensual energy. Yes.
Mhm. And
Tactile too.
ta
Tactile.
yeah, tactile. It is also a sign of building something
Mhm.
that has a lasting
Yes.
effect.
Right.
So, lasting value.
Mhm.
And this will be a time for us to care for our physical bodies to make sure we're, in good shape physically, but also emotionally, um, because we're entering this time of the sensual sort of pleasures of life, and those are very emotional as well. Like the emotions are linked to the senses. So refocus yourself on what brings you happiness. I
Mm.
think the sun in Taurus really does that for us. Find beauty in the world, in the stillness, even if you want, but find beauty. Okay.
We don't
And
have much time left
I
here,
know
Janet.
we don't. So let's fly ahead a little bit. Let's see what of the next week's energies.
I think we have to
Um,
talk about the moon. We only have 5 minutes. I think we've got to go to that moon.
Yeah, let's go to the new moon. I do just want to say there are a couple of tense energies that week. One, the sun squaring Pluto, which
Yep.
can bring power struggles to the surface. Venus conjunct Saturn again, which we already did talk about earlier in the month on the 7th. So it's kind of a replay of that because now she's in forward motion. And Mars opposing Pluto. That I would say of all the days in this month is a danger day,
Yeah.
where things can get out of control if we're not careful.
Mhm.
Followed by the Taurus new moon, which I'm going to show the picture of the Taurus new moon, houses this interesting square with the
Yeah.
sun and earth up there in Taurus and Mars over in Leo and the black moon Lilith down here in Scorpio and then who's that over there? Oh, Pluto. God, Pluto in uh, Aquarius energy. So it's huge,
Yeah.
huge new moon. And I think because new moons are always the potential for a new beginning, but it's
Right.
in the dark, right? We're in the dark at that point in time. Um, so it's like having this clear slate, but we don't know exactly what will happen, so we can imprint it with our intentions. So that's why the new moon is always a powerful time.
Mhm.
And it might be a time where we're really looking at what it is, again, that is going to ground us as we move forward. And
Mhm.
this happens, by the way, on the 20th or 27th, excuse me, right? The new moon. So
Yes.
we're at the end of a month that has already taken us on quite a few adventures and has, seen us changing and re-embodying things.
27th. Yep.
Yeah. And then this one has squares in it.
Mhm.
Squares are challenges.
Right.
So it's no ordinary Taurus new moon. Really, on the surface, it's a new moon, but there's kind of this storm of passion and power and primal truth that's sort of stirring in the depths underneath it all. And,
Mhm.
the new moon is following Mars opposing Pluto. So I don't know. To me, the outer world might be a little wonky, crazy, wild those days. Um, but we get to plant the seeds of the new beginnings for our creative endeavors, right? Or of money. Maybe it's an economic storm that day. I don't know.
Actually, that's what I was just getting ready to say. Like, I think this very easily could have to do with money, especially considering what happened earlier in the month.
It's
Like there
a
seems to be
possibility.
some kind of a theme around resources and personal value systems, of course. It's always going to be relative to that. But
Yeah,
I just tend to think there's some economic undertones here.
yeah. And because the new moon is squaring Mars and Pluto, who were
Right.
just in an opposition,
Right.
and opposing the black moon Lilith as well. There's this emotional intensity that's
Mhm.
in this new moon that's maybe suppressed desires, maybe it's fierce independence, maybe it's either financial extraordinarily good news, or is it I mean, there was talk of a recession. I don't know, but it could be interesting. Just stay out of fear. This is not the week to go into fear. And in fact, this is a new moon to reclaim your power,
Mm.
right? To really, without dominating anybody or without retreating, just being in your own authentic power and, working with your shadow side, whatever shadows are coming up, and they do, they come up. Um, what are you afraid to claim in terms of your own power? What are you ready to release? And the thing about squares, just from a astrology point of view, is they create tension, and that tension leads us to growth, right? A
Mhm.
change of state, right? Moving us into something new. So let that tension guide you to what you need to move through and not be something that derails your life, right? Don't let it push you into the wrong territory. And then to end the month, we have Venus in Aries. So
Heavy.
now she's back in her territory.
Turning up the temperature.
Turning up the temperature. Yeah.
I
There's so
just think
much
of
more we could say.
Oh, totally, but it's totally lots we can say. I just really simplified it. I just think about the passion that
Mhm.
comes here, and it's so interesting. Venus being more about couples and Aries being more about autonomy. It's interesting, the Venus in Aries, but I really think about high passion when I think about Venus in Aries.
Yeah. And then with all of that Aries energy, passions that can get out of control, right? That can
Totally.
get overblown.
Yeah.
So everybody be responsible for um, your responses, your own actions, but be creative. Lean into the love that is really there in a big way throughout the month of April. The unconditional love that we might have if we looked from the point of view of spirit or God, if you will, or source, however you want to word that. All right. That's it for me. Do you have anything else you want to share?
Um, Nope. I think that was it. That was me looking around the office. I think I'm good.
And by the way, I shared my screen the entire time, so I didn't see comments. I will go back through comments, and if there were any questions, I think, Tam, you might have brought them up for me, but
I would have brought up any comments. Honestly,
okay.
it was mostly me commenting today. There wasn't a lot.
Oh, but there's quite a few people back there. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
there's lots.
Nice.
I see Autumn and J-Lo, and I saw
Bill Holt
Paulette,
and Pat,
Christine.
eh,
Yeah, there's a lot of our
lots.
friendlies in here.
Yeah, Tamara and Asa. I feel like on Romper Room when we were little kids, and I see Jerry and I see Cam. All right, that is it for us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will get that calendar out as soon as my website decides to work. And
Might be mid-April before you get that, folks. Mercury is retrograde.
you we'll just have to take it one step at a time. All right, much love to everybody. I will see you all on Friday. We'll talk about what is coming up for the weekend. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.